welcome back to another episode of the Carbon Cardboard Podcast covering Formula One and the Formula One card hobby. I'm your host, Bryan, Q3 Cards, joined as always with my good friend Scott from the F1 Castle. Wow, so much to talk about.
A lot going on in F1 world and the F1 hobby.
So much to talk about. We're just going to get right into it because there's just so much to talk about. I'm not even going to ask you how National was because we're going to spend pretty much the whole episode talking about how the National was from a Formula One perspective. So let's just go right to this. We're going to talk Spa recap because that happened yesterday as of the time of the recording. People are going to hear this on Tuesday. We have some driver market news, and then the rest of the episode is just me going to be FOMO wishing me that I was at National, hearing about all the good stuff that went on. It was just, it looked like a blast. And I love seeing Formula One so represented. I mean, it's still a niche. I know the soccer guys all had a separate offsite thing that looked tremendous. I got to tell you, Scott, I would love to see Formula One get something similar. So we gotta pull some strings and see if we
got
can
a hashtag keep pushing,
pushing, and see if we can get that at Chicago. So, but
sure.
Yeah, we'll give some shout outs as we go along there. So the race winner that wasn't Scott, I love Spa. It's one of my favorite tracks. I love to see our friend in the hobby, Racing in Kronos, was actually at the race.
Legendary.
Just so many cool photos. Go follow Racing in Kronos on Instagram. Pit lane access, just incredible. On card.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the Oliver Behrman Superfractor Futero card, which was not the Super Auto, is now the second Super Auto because he signed on the slab. So you got to make sure he protects that very well. But yeah, just Scott, run us through spending just a few minutes on this race, although it was another instant classic. I mean, what a season.
Yeah. It was great. I got to say, though, I got to ask you, do you think they'll ever grade a slab auto and then put it in a bigger slab and authenticate the auto on top of the slab? I wonder how far down it'll go.
It's like Inception. I don't know.
Right?
Maybe you can just keep going. I don't know. As soon as I never even in my wildest dreams considered that was even an option in the hobby, but
yep, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, good on Scott. He's a good guy. So
yeah, and really quick, just to touch on that too, because I'm a huge fan of Kim Illman. He's a photographer, has been the biggest kind of photographer for F1, and he does a thing called Watches of the Paddock. And Racing Kronos was featured twice and had the main tile picture on his Instagram for one of them. So super cool. We all know, Racing in Kronos and Kronos. That's the watches. So yeah, super cool for Scott. Amazing access to the drivers, to everything. I mean, you saw some of his videos. He was right next to the cars. So yeah, that was legendary. But getting into the race, wow, we had it all. We had Max fastest in qualifying, but then 10 place grid penalty starts him from 11th, which he actually had the last 2 years. He was on, pole, or he was fastest, right? The last 2 years, 10 place grid penalty, and then he won both of those races. This year, that was not the case. It's a lot closer between all those teams. So wasn't able to make his way up that far. But we had what looked like, after Lando Norris had a terrible start, lost positions. Sergio Perez, not a great start, lost positions. And all of a sudden, it kind of threw the race, turned into, okay, maybe Leclerc had a little bit of a shot early. Hamilton was looking like the favorite. And then Piastri had a shout. Russell wasn't really in contention for the win until we got to around lap 30. And they're like, we're just going to stay out. Why? And over the radio, they said, if you stay out, it's looking like a P5. And if you come in, it's looking like a P5. So at that point, you roll the dice and you stay out, right? You're in the lead. And it wasn't a P5, it was a P1 initially. But I swear, it was really fun to watch Hamilton bear down on Russell. I mean, this was shades of Brazil 2022, Russell's first ever win. Hamilton chasing him down. Hamilton was chasing down Russell for the last like 5 or 6 laps of Brazil 2022 and was doing the same here in Spa. And Russell, for someone who has gotten a little bit of a reputation of, cracking under pressure at the end of races, he didn't. He did a phenomenal job to stay ahead of Hamilton, and gutted for him that he was ultimately disqualified due to the weight of his car being 1.5 kilos under the weight limit, which is 798 kilos. So he was like, 0.0 something percent under the weight limit, but them's the rules, right? So ultimately heartbreak for Russell after elation. He's disqualified, but Lewis Hamilton inherits the win. So Mercedes still gets a win, which means they have 3 out of the last 4. If you're telling me that at the beginning of this season, you would have predicted that the last 4 races of the first half, Mercedes would have won, I would have been like, no shot. You're out of your mind. No way. And here we are. Russell got Austria and Lewis got Silverstone and Spa. And all of a sudden, Mercedes is right in it, and Lewis did a great job. Of the 2 stoppers, he was the best, right? He did a really good job. Piastri came for him at the end as he was battling with Russell, but couldn't get there. So really good race. And it was funny because Piastri was bearing down on Hamilton at the end. The last 2 in the Road to the Summer Break bracket challenge I did was Hamilton versus Piastri. And I got a couple of messages from people that were like in the thick of it to like win break credit that were like, I was yelling at the TV, like, come on. Like, it just adds a little bit of jeopardy. It's kind of like fantasy football in that regard. So yeah, that was really cool. We're definitely going to do some more stuff like that in the second half, but yeah, super pumped. Lewis, another victory. You never love to get it off track. But hey, a win is a win. And for him, it's his 105th. That promotes Leclerc to the podium. And then Max 4th, Lando 5th. So yeah, you can look at you can go back to constructor standings, because actually McLaren end up yet again taking the most points with a 2nd and a 5th from Oscar and Lando. So McLaren did a really good job. Ultimately, Perez went backwards. So Red Bull lost a little bit there. Ferrari was decent. McLaren 3rd, and I think Sainz 6th or 7th. And then Mercedes, they were on for huge points with the 1-2. And then, of course, they're only going to get the 25 from Hamilton's win and nothing from Russell. But this does set up a pretty close battle right now between McLaren and Ferrari. Mercedes is in ascendancy. And then, the question that everyone is asking is, will Kick Sauber score a single point in the entire championship this year? And I don't know if they will. So...
If it is, it's going to be Bottas, I think.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, that's the driver standings too. Obviously, at the time of the recording, we're going to talk the driver market here just in a moment. But Christian Horner gave the seal of approval that Perez will not be replaced, as often rumored, at the summer break here. However, you being a student of the game, Scott, back in 2019, they said a very similar thing about Pierre Gasly, and within 2 weeks, he was being replaced by Alexander Albon. So, take it at face value. There's just so many positives that Perez brings to the table. It doesn't look good on the CV when you go from 2nd to 8th.
Yeah, this was like, hey, we need a good race. And after qualifying, it's like, oh my God, because qualifying was, Perez could have had a horror show of a weekend, because he only made it into Q3. Or no, sorry, he only made it into Q2. He was almost knocked out in Q1. He made it by 0.003 seconds. Can you imagine if Perez started this race in 16th? He would have finished out of the points. So, yeah, not great from Perez. Ultimately, he did get it done in qualifying, but then, just went backwards. Wasn't put on the best strategy, I will admit. Was not put on the best strategy, but just didn't do himself any favors in the race. Unfortunately, just cannot seem to unlock the same pace in that car as Max. Summer break coming at a good time for him. He is a big beneficiary of Russell getting disqualified, because if Russell wasn't disqualified, Perez is in 8th. And if you're looking at your teammate in 1st and you're in 8th, and like there's 4 big teams, right? Like there's nowhere lower you can be than 8th, because Alonso is as good as he is not going to be fighting for the top 8 in the Aston Martin. So Perez is saved a little bit by that. And yeah, he's going to need a strong second half to make it into 2025, because he's gotten the seal of approval for the rest of this season. Allegedly, supposedly, potentially, like you said, we've seen it in Red Bull. This is the guy that we were talking about a month ago was given a 2-year contract. Why does he need a seal of approval for the rest of the current season?
Exactly.
So I mean, even the fact that you're getting that information coming out, I don't think it's great. So yeah, we'll see. I hope he has a nice break, chill out, relax, and come back rejuvenated.
And he has a ton of fans, like we've talked about in the past too.
Oh yeah.
Like especially a lot of bigger collectors in the hobby, like DJ Leo, Dan Zhu. Like,
yep.
There's a lot of people out there that are fans of Perez and want him to do well. Driver market news. We unfortunately, Scott, have one of our, I've had multiple incorrect picks. I think this is maybe your first incorrect pick.
No, it's actually not, because Ocon to Haas. I had Danny Rick.
Gotcha. Okay, so second. We'll pour one out for you on that one. Carlos Sainz to Williams. The altar, leaving all these teams at the altar, didn't look like the Mercedes seat was going to materialize. The Red Bull seat is finalized, maybe not finalized. Scott, it does look like potentially, depending on who you believe, that actually Sainz might have an out in this new long-term contract with Williams if Mercedes or Red Bull comes knocking, that he might have the opportunity to leave.
Yeah, well, and what's interesting about that is because usually you'll see, it's a 1+1 deal where it's like, okay, a year, and then if you can go somewhere else, he'll take it instead. But it sounds like this is a very unique contract in that he put pen to paper, but if Mercedes or Red Bull offer him a contract for next year, he's just not going to Williams at all. So, right now, Kimi Antonelli definitely seems like the favorite for Mercedes, especially after his, breathtaking overtake into Rouge in Spa. And Red Bull seems to be, I don't know what's going on in Red Bull. But yeah, I mean, I think another thing that this is great for is Alpine was one of the spots that Carlos Sainz was considering. And so this could pave the way for
you doing?
One Jack, how you doing to pick up a seat, which would be awesome. We would love to see that. I think that would be, out of all the signings, like seriously, I think like Ocon to Haas, great. Sainz to Williams, great. Doing to Alpine would be the biggest news in the hobby, because I think new drivers coming in is just always big news. I think it would actually be bigger news than Behrman. Because Behrman, I think everyone had just assumed baked in, like after he did the drive for Ferrari in Bahrain, we're like, oh, okay, this is just signed, sealed, and delivered. Yeah, I would love to see it. Our boy Ben would be pumped, and Ozzy.
So there's 4 seats left in the musical chairs. Like we said, it's almost a foregone conclusion that Kimi Antonelli will be potentially Russell's teammate next year. Alpine, like you just mentioned, we don't know what RB Cash App is going to do here. The shakeup that we really haven't talking about too much is at Kick Sauber. Eventually going to be the Audi project. Harry Potter himself, Mattia Binotto, is returning to take over for Andreas Seidel. Can't speak English today, apparently. It's late night here on the East Coast, but yeah, 4 seats left. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's a really big missed opportunity with Binotto going to Kick Sauber, because if he had gone to Mercedes in some type of technical role, then we would have Harry Potter at AMG Petronas, And I feel like
Oh,
that would have just been, I
I
mean,
see what you did there.
and they're a British team. Like if you don't think that would have been the biggest meme of the century, it like because this is a German team, so with Audi. So if it had gone that way, that would have been pretty legendary. But actually, bring that back up real quick, Brian, if you could, because I know we did our, kind of where we think musical chairs are all going to fall. But looking at the last 4 seats, I'm curious, where do you think we're going to end up? Like you said, we both think Kimi Antonelli alongside Russell Mercedes. We're both hoping for Jack
Doing.
Doohan alongside Alpine. So now when it comes to Sauber, I mean, that leaves us with 2 seats, right? Sauber and RB. What are your thoughts on where we think we'll end up?
So we were actually having this very conversation with our good friends from the cards formula with TC and Chris earlier today about the opening seat with Kick Sauber, where you've got, I'll speak in generalities here, and it's not a dig at either driver here, but when you've got Bottas and you've got Joe, Bottas obviously has the pedigree, and in my opinion, the talent, very underappreciated at Mercedes, especially given like what we're seeing with Perez to a certain extent. Yeah. And then you've got Joe, who necessarily doesn't have the pedigree, maybe doesn't have the experience that Bottas does, but has a significant financial backing from his sponsors and stuff. I almost think that it's going to be one of those two that stays with Sauber, at least initially here. I just don't see any of the other F2 guys making... I know that you at one point thought maybe potentially Zane Maloney was an option.
Yeah. He's fallen away a bit in the championship.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think there. There's a lot of F2 drivers like Paul Aaron and Isaac Hadjar, the Hedge. But I don't know if they would jump teams or academies. So I think really the biggest intrigue left is what are they going to do at RB? And, I know we both pretty much put Liam Lawson there, but that leaves Daniel Ricciardo in limbo. Here's a crazy thought that I just thought of like earlier today. Like, what if we see like Ricciardo at Mercedes if they don't quite think Antonelli's ready? Like that would be crazy.
Bryan chefing up some spice tonight with Ricciardo to Mercedes. That would be wild. And, there's that clip going around of Danny Rick having a conversation with Christian Horner and with Mekis from RB.
Yep.
Mekis. And Ricciardo seemed to have like a little hop, step, like smile when he left that conversation. So a lot of people took that to insinuate that, he's going to Red Bull for the second half of the season. But maybe that's that he's going to Red Bull next year. I don't know. Because I think at RB, you've really got 3 drivers that don't have a seat currently, right? Like take Perez out of it. You got 3 drivers that have a shot, right? Either they re-sign Ricciardo, they bring in Lawson, or maybe they bring in Hadjar because, Hadjar he's doing really well in the championship now. He has extended his lead significantly here before the break, and Christian Horner is heaping high praise on him. So there's a shot that maybe he leapfrogs Lawson, and man, it's so tough to watch these guys go through F2 and then like become a reserve driver or something. They're waiting for their shot. Like poor Felipe Drugovich is going to be a reserve driver for his entire career, and that might happen to Lawson. So I think one of those 3 gets it. I honestly don't know. I really don't know. I was very certain about Lawson earlier in the year, and now I have no idea. And Kick Sauber, like you said, I think maybe they go with Bottas. I think Hulkenberg and Bottas is a solid pairing. And I don't think they're thinking about bringing in like K-Mag or anyone like that. So, maybe
wouldn't that be funny though, Scott, if it was Hulkenberg and K-Mag?
if the 2 Haas drivers just switched to Sauber, that'd be wild. But I mean, I guess the one driver I could maybe see is if Paul Aaron has just a fantastic second half and then blows away and wins the championship. He doesn't have an affiliation right now. So maybe they sign him and say, screw it, get in the car. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm sure we'll get some news over the next few weeks, and we'll certainly be talking about it on here.
Well, one thing this will actually help us transition into talking about your time at the National. We're going to try to do this chronologically from Thursday to pretty much the end of the day on Friday, which, we'll cover most of the Formula One stuff.
Right.
All this talk of like Carlos Sainz getting the other Williams seat, unfortunately, that means that Logan Sargent's time at Williams is coming to an end.
Yeah. No, it does. But I will say, positive here. He's going to see out the rest of the season. I think some folks, myself included, were a little worried that Spa was going to be his last race. But yeah, so it does sound like Logan's going to see out the rest of the season, which is great. And then, Sainz going to take over and Logan probably going to IndyCar, maybe with Prema. But yeah, so obviously, the big story, at least for me, in terms of my national was, Thursday. We had that huge break. 2 cases of 2020 Sapphire, massive collaboration with Top Tier Authentics, Beckett Grading, and Logan Sargent, right? The first time a Formula One driver has been involved in a break at all. And he addressed the hobby, which I think almost more so than getting the race worn gear, which obviously was super cool. You can see in the picture there, the gloves to my right and the Nomex to the left. Very cool that he sent those over. But I think the fact that he addressed, he said F1 fans, collectors, and the F1 hobby, he was really happy to be part of the National and one of the biggest breaks we've ever ran there. That was cool. That was cool. And I think folks in the hobby should really be excited about that, because for a Formula One driver to address, the collectors and the F1 hobby itself, I mean, it's a big first step, guys. In baseball, basketball, there's tons of ex-players, current players that are involved in the hobby already, especially in baseball. So, I mean, F1 is just so tough. There's only 20 drivers. They're all over the world at all times. So to get anyone involved, I think is really cool. And I mean, honestly, made a little bit of history, the F1 hobby, in the fact of getting someone involved. Was he there in person? No. Was he able to hop on Instagram? No, because it was 3 a.m. in Spa and it's a race weekend. But we got the best we could, and I think it was really cool. He also signed 15 driver cards, and everyone that was in the break is going to get one of those. So ultimately, super cool experience, just to have that kind of all wrapped together. And then outside of just Logan joining, awesome to have Top Tier Authentic. I mean, Top Tier Authentic, not only were they great partners for the entire, event, but trying to gamify breaking, adding digital assets and, benefits that will continue on past just the break and the cards you get, I think is really cool and, potentially revolutionary for breaking in the hobby. We're going to have, like I said, this is the first of many, and we have some big things that are planned. This seems really big right now because we got a driver involved. But when you see what we have planned for later in the year, it's going to blow this out of the water. But it's cool to have done it. I think the National is a great place to have the first iteration of this done. So big shout out to Andrew, to Dimitri, and to Chris, everyone involved over there at Top Tier, for working with me, and also shout out to Beckett. Really cool that they were able to provide us with some custom labels, because I mean, theoretically, all these cards that we got were one of ones if they got the custom label. So you can see there, normally you get a gold Max Verstappen BGS8, maybe you're cracking it out, but here you've got a 2024 NSCC, so National Sports Collectors Convention Trade Night F1 break. This is the first time that any F1 break has gotten custom labels from a grading company. I mean, we're talking this is Logan Paul PSA stuff when he did that big Pokemon break, right? To get a custom label, I think is really cool. And it does make these cards technically one of ones, right? There's no other Max gold image variation, any grade, that's going to have that 2024 NSCC Trade Night F1 break label on it. So I think that's super cool. We made sure that everybody, initially we were only going to do 5, but we negotiated and pleaded, had some conversations with Beckett, and they agreed to grade 1 for everybody at least. So everyone in the break, like even Anton Saz, who I met, by the way, shout out, dude, one of the nicest guys ever. He was a legend. He was actually with me on the craps table, and if you know, hard 10. So we were throwing some craps, and we hit a hard 10, and the entire table won, including the dealers. We got the dealers involved. But it was wild. But he had Dragovich on that break, not a single parallel in 2 cases. So we took one of the base cards, Felipe Dragovich, and got the custom label on it. So, everyone, even if they didn't get a hit, went away with something to remember the break from. So really cool. The Leclerc spot was insane. Well, the Ferrari spot for, again, Racing Kronos. Dude's a legend this weekend. And so he hit an orange, a gold, a 70th, and a base Leclerc variation. Also had a Vettel variation, but so
all while on a plane to Spa, like he kept telling, he wanted to tell the pilot to like turn the plane around.
And what was crazy too, and I don't think I actually gave you a picture of this, but we hit him a red out of 5, so color match, Charles Leclerc Grand Prix winner in Belgium, which is his first ever race win, and it was Spa weekend. He's on a plane going to Belgium to Spa, and we hit the card. So that was super cool. Scott was really stoked. And then the Mercedes spot did pretty well. We hit a red Lewis Hamilton car, red Bottas, bunch of other stuff. And then we hit a purple Mercedes logo, which, man, this thing, it just looks absolutely beautiful. So purple logo is really cool. And then the hit of the night. And this was so funny because we were getting down to it, right? In the first case, the red was like the Bottas, not great. First case was okay. I think we had some of the good Leclercs and Maxes in that first case. But the second case, I was getting down to it. I probably had like 2 boxes left, and I saw a red, and like I just peeked a tiny bit, and I instantly knew that it was that Leclerc Belgium card. So I was like, okay, we're going to do this last, because how cool would it be to end with the Leclerc Belgium win when we're doing that. And then like 4 packs later, I saw pink, and I was like, and it was crazy because we had like a crowd of people there, and I wish I had some pictures from the other side. I know I do, but we have to get. Me and my wife have, shout out to the Queen of the Castle, have a ton of pictures and hashtag B-roll that we're gonna turn into a big reel and everything. But there was a big crowd of folks that were watching. Like obviously at the trade night, there's thousands of people, but the way it's set up, like you're not displaying or breaking into the thousands, but there was a big group right in front, and a lot of people standing up watching. For me and Rips, Eric D2, and Shake, and Epitome of Love, and the Leahi guys, and Double A Mint, or AA Mint, sorry, always do that. Ton of people, and sorry if I missed anyone. There's a big group of folks watching. And when because I didn't say anything, because I was like, oh, we're going to say this to the end for the red. And I saw the pink, and I just like smirked and like put it down. And everyone was like, oh, like everyone started going crazy. Like, oh my God. And I knew at the time when I put it down that it was horizontal and that it was more than likely a logo. What I didn't know is what kind of logo. I had no idea whether it was, because there's still a decent amount of F2 logos. Like I hit the ART logo, I've hit the MP logo, I've hit like probably 4 or so of the F2 logos, but there's 11 of them, right? So I think there was still like 4 or 5 left that hadn't been hit, and there was only 3 F1, right? The only ones before this that hadn't been hit were, I think, Red Bull and Williams are still live, and then Haas. Everything else been hit. And I hit the McLaren one, I hit the Mercedes, both of those earlier this year. So yeah, when I saw Haas, I mean, man, what a card. I mean, not only is it an F1 logo, so that's super cool. It's a team that's still around, and super pumped for Alexi Sets Fire, Adam, who came and picked this up at trade night. But like, you get into Haas break, and he was telling me about this later. He was like, yeah, you joined 22 case to 2020 Sapphire. Like, it's not obviously as expensive as like a $19,000 spot like Mercedes, but still like $1,000, which is significant, right? But it's a relatively cheaper spot. He's like, yeah, you get on that. You're thinking like, maybe I can hit a red, portrait or a red something. And then you get the pad logo. I mean, what a hit. ROI wise, probably did the best on the break. So yeah, massive way to end it. It was super cool. Great experience all around. And I had so many people come up to me and just kind of that were very appreciative of like putting it all on and just like I said, hashtag keep pushing, right? We're trying to get as many eyes, and really this isn't about me. This is about F1 hobby in general, right? We need to get more eyes on the F1 hobby, more collectors involved, interested, and make, folks like Fanatics, Topps, and other drivers and stuff take notice, because that's how we push it. That's how we get, more collectors involved. Cards go up in value. We get cooler experiences, cooler things. So I think this was a good step towards that. So yeah, Thursday was epic. I went to casino after and had a great time, but then we go to Friday, and give me 1 second here. So then we go to Friday, and we did the Legends of F1 collab, right? So this is myself, Rated Rips, Ferg from Rated Rips, and Eric from Golden Pulls. The three of us, really the only ones that have been around breaking Formula One since Formula One was released in 2021. So we figured, yeah, it'd be cool to do, a product of every year, kind of go through the years. And our 2023 case was insane. We hit a Bottas auto, a Verstappen auto, a gold Joe auto, and an orange Mansell auto. 4 F1 autos in one 2023 Chrome case. So that was really cool. And then honestly, the 2022 and 2021 Sapphire cases were both not great, unfortunately. But then 2020 was cool. Hit a gold wave Danny Rick auto, gold Latifi auto, a red Hammy. I think it was like a red 70th. We hit a nice max. So yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun. It was also just so much fun hanging out with Ferg and Golden and everybody. And this was over at Ferg's house. And then what we did later at trade night, we'll talk about trade night here in a minute. We signed them. So you can see, like, this is a cropped image, but so this is a cropped image of the actual brake mats. So we had a bunch of brake mats, and then we signed them. So like it's my signature above my logo, Eric's above Golden Pulls, and Ferg's above Rated Rips. And so we're giving away one to, random participant in all of those breaks. And then, we're probably going to do some more stuff with the other ones we have, giveaways, etc. So everyone kind of took home some of them to do with as they please. But yeah, so super cool to have those made. Again, shout out to Ben for the graphic there. And then let's talk about trade night, right? Because so trade night, and listen, I got a lot of credit for putting this together. I was a piece of the puzzle, and the largest puzzle was Medalist, because Medalist is the one that actually locked down the venue and had that all set up. Me, myself, Golden Pulls, and Rated Rips, we were all involved and we were part of it. And we contributed to all the giveaways that were handed out, and like getting everyone to come to the show and stuff. But Medalist definitely did the most work. So shout out to Clayton for showing us his hometown. But it was awesome. And like going to the national, and I got so many messages, so many DMs from people that were like, the highlight of my national was the trade night. Like the highlight of the national was the trade night. If it's not for the trade night, I'm not going. Like all of this, right? And I think like it really kind of clicked that, like, because like you said earlier, because Formula One cards are so niche right now, the national, if you're walking that floor, like it's like
Not a lot of
finding
Formula
it's
One.
a needle in a haystack, man. And listen, soccer guys were talking about it too, about how they had their really good trade nights and stuff. It's 90% baseball, or maybe 80, and then like 10% each, like football. Like there's a ton of baseball, and then there's a lot of basketball, football, some soccer, and like no F1. So there was a few cards, but we had thousands, literally. I mean, thousands. I would say probably 5 digits worth of F1 cards. Like we're talking like 10,000 plus F1 cards in that trade night. So, and there were, over 100 people there. I think like over the course of the night going in and out, we had over 200 people show up. So that was really cool. We gave away a ton of stuff. Boxes of 2023 Chrome, packs of 2023 Chrome, box 2022 Light, like Mercedes sweatshirt, all of our goodie bags and stuff that had stands and stickers and all that kind of stuff too. But it was just a lot of fun, and I got to meet. I'm always blown away how many people I meet every year. Like I'm always like, oh, I've met like so many every national. I feel like at the trade night, I end up meeting like 20 to 30 people that I hadn't met in person before. So it's always a lot of fun. And it made me realize like we have to do this every year. Like there has to be an F1 trade night. And I know this year, like last year, I ended up breaking throughout most of it. And it wasn't an amazing experience for me because I was sitting there breaking. I didn't really get time to talk to people and hang out. And so this year we're like, oh, maybe it's gonna be something where we all kind of meet at a bar and just hang out. It's community vibes. And like I think that would have been fun. But I do think it's important that we do something with the cards and have a trade night, because I had someone send me a message and they were talking specifically. They're like, hey, I was really bummed when I found out that maybe it was just going to be like a get together at Top Golf or a bar and like hanging out, because there's like I said, there's not a lot of cards F1 at the National. So without having a dedicated F1 trade night somewhere, F1 collectors, you might as well not even come to the National, right? There's just not that opportunity. So we have to do it every year. I will make sure that we do it every year. Like, I'm always going to be a part of it. Whoever, is there and wants to be involved, like I'll work with folks on collaborating on it, but we're always going to have an F1 trade night. And like this year solidified that for me. Like I will be traveling to the National every year. I will be hosting an F1 trade night every year. So everyone can rest easy and know that, next year in Chicago and the year after in Chicago, like we will have a trade night. I will host it with some other folks, but it's just something that has to happen. Because I saw countless stories of everyone saying like they had so many pickups at the trade night and like the only time they picked up cards was at trade night and stuff. So yeah, super cool. And shout out to here Tie-Dye Collector and Tarmac Cards. They've got some new cards. They're like import tuner cards, and you might see a little bit of that on my my page coming up, just to have fun with those. But yeah, so super cool experience. I mean, honestly, it's just so much fun seeing everyone together, because I mean, this is such the industry that we're in, the hobby that we're in is 95% virtual, right? Like I go live and I'm breaking for people, or people are sharing their hits on their Instagram, or people are sharing their pickups, and like it's so awesome to see everyone in person and to like get to hang out, and like you realize like, dude, we're all in this together, whether you're a breaker, whether you're just a collector or flipper, even anything, like we're all in the F1 hobby together. And like I said, I mean, my mantra basically going into this and coming out of this is hashtag keep pushing, because we gotta keep pushing the Formula One hobby forward. And that's how we're going to see the most growth in the space.
This is the thing that I regretted not going. So, yeah, I definitely have to, even if I don't go to the actual national show, just going to Chicago next year for the trade night might be, man, it's so much good stuff. Like you said, we actually might be on a summer break of our own. Both you and I have some travel planned up, so that'll be good. We can kind of let potentially the driver market settle. There's always going to be the cards there.
Yeah.
You and I have so many different ideas that we want to talk about with these different sets, and, be the, I hate to say like historians, but I mean, at some point when these sets are even multiple years down the road, having some evergreen content with knowing the sets as well as both you and I do, for different reasons, with you on the opening, the wax and the breaking side, and for me on the, the card prep and submission side. We know these sets in and out, maybe not each card numerically exactly what they are, but if you mention a card, we're probably going to know what you're talking about. So,
yep. No, for sure. Yeah. So we'll have a lot of content coming up over the next month, even without the races and stuff. So yeah, we may be taking a brief hiatus for a week or two, but definitely wanted to get this one out here to kind of talk everything about the National and just recap Spa and the recent driver news before we headed out.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're at the almost 40-minute mark. We knew this was going to be a good one, talking National. So Scott, my friend, why don't you bring us home?
All righty, guys. Well, we'll be gone for a little bit, but in the meantime, collect your cardboard and keep it carbon.